I was reading about war, and I was really considering and looking at child soldiers in Africa specifically. And it made me tick and be like, what's going on that they become child soldiers? Because you just hear that and you're just like, oh my God, like they just are killing people, blah, blah, as kids. Um, and I discovered Situationism by B.F. Skinner, which is essentially to say that it's the stimulus in your environment that has a huge impact on that. And then I started to think about, okay, if you're out with friends and they're like, oh, I'm not going to drink much tonight, like I'm not going to do this or engage in this behavior. And so many times they do, right? Or like different instances, like moral situations. People would say, I would never sleep with a married man. I would never be the other woman or the other person. And funny enough, they find themselves in these situations, even to the point of like really severe things, really hard topics to bounce around, like abortion. There have been people in my life who are staunch Christian Republicans, anti-abortion, pro-life, pro-life, pro-life. And when they were put in a situation where they would be responsible for the baby, they did have an abortion. So clearly, by my humble opinion, I do not believe that people can necessarily be held to their word of how they're going to behave, especially if they just like haven't faced like some circumstances that would show that they, actually do stay stable. So yeah, so that's essentially how I've come across the topic and some personal instances that I've noticed.
I like what you're saying. I want to potentially differentiate between two things. The two things are knowing yourself very well and changing from what you know, and not knowing yourself well and doing what you would do if you knew yourself. It would not surprise you if you knew yourself. Because I don't know why, but the image that flashed into my mind when you gave the example of the I wouldn't sleep with a married man or I wouldn't get an abortion is that if this person like knew their psyche well, and this is a big part of my worldview, is that people have their conscious minds and then people have their psyches, and the psyche is all unconscious. And therein lies the things that are some of your most deeply felt emotions, beliefs, ideologies. And if you took the time to understand the childhood events that had shaped the person that you are, then it might not surprise you that you would do things like that. So I wonder if if your worldview is similar to mine. I've been in therapy for 10 years and I have changed a lot, which is why I'm interested in this topic. And I feel I know myself well, but I have known many people in my life that don't know themselves well, and they wouldn't describe themselves accurately in my view of like my report of who they are. I think it's different from their self-assessment. And so they would surprise themselves, but it wouldn't be that surprising for like a therapist or someone that understood their background and some of their level of attachment and the problems that they had when they were kids with attachment. So anyway, I wonder if you make that differentiation when you think about this topic.
I have not considered it or seen it in such a light. To me, that makes a lot of sense. I believe that there is the conscious level, the subconscious level of, knowing ourselves and being in tune with ourselves. And I also agree that basically in our domestication as humans and how we're raised and the events that we go through have a huge effect on our behaviors, whether we recognize it or not. And truly through going to therapy and actually like getting the stuff out, we tend to get to know ourselves better, the good, the bad, the ugly. To me, that makes a lot of sense. And if we can take the time to recognize that, then we have the chance to change our behaviors or to reconcile other ones.
Yes. But I would say Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I would say that I ultimately agree, though, and there's two different
Mm,
directions that my mind is going. There's my own personal journey of how I've gone from someone who is depressed and narcissistic and didn't know himself at all, but had some strong beliefs. Um, like I felt that I was happy all the time. I would have reported as happy all the time. So if
mm,
something happened to truly strike at the heart of the depression that I was, fully in, it would have been shocking to me. My self-reporting would have been inaccurate, and I would have ended up, feeling like really destroyed. But it wouldn't have been surprising to anyone that knew how much I was laboring to create a facade.